This podcast has been brought to you by Xenio Travel. We are building the most amazing hospitality network.
Very happy to have you here, Andrew Miller. I used to call you Drew Miller because that's how you wrote on Facebook a long time ago. Please tell us about you. Who are you?
Well, I do go by Drew Miller still. That's fine.
Cool.
I am. I'm from a small town in West Virginia, just about 45 minutes north of our capital of Charleston. It's called Spencer. Very small town of about 5,000 people. Um, uh, was born here, grew up here. My parents still live in the house that I grew up in. Um, graduated from Roane County High School here. I went to West Virginia University back in 1997 to college. Graduated with a degree in sport management, which, as I mentioned the first time we were trying to get this thing started, is worth about the same amount as the toilet paper I use these days. Um, it wasn't as if I was not aware of that when I was going through the program. I was always an athlete growing up. I've always been very interested in sports. I was a four-sport athlete in high school. So I was very athletic growing up and all the way through high school. Even into college, I was athletic. But as often happens with people, sometimes you lose your way. And that's something that really did happen to me in my 20s. I found myself not really sure what I wanted to do. The prospects for the field of sport management were not very good. After a couple of years of kind of toiling at a low level job, it just didn't seem like something I was passionate about. Um, and I spent basically the better part of my 20s trying to find out what I was passionate about. Um, what that led me to was not the best physical health, not the best um, mental health, and emotional health, all three. Um, I worked odd jobs. I did many different things. I was a professional golf caddy for a while at a couple of resorts. I worked in a body shop. I was an ad salesman. I was a fitness center employee, many different things, none of which obviously stuck. And throughout those 20s, the late 20s, it was a very, very difficult time. And you find yourself someone who had always had a path in life. And I always had a path and I always had a focus and a motivation. Felt like I was just drifting at that point. Felt like I was not even a part of life anymore. I was just really just hanging on in my late 20s. And it really, it ended up making a turn for the absolute worst at age 30, where I had some personal issues and some mistakes that ended up leading me to this really amazing path that I've become very fond of since then.
Which was about the time that I met you during the run.
Yes.
That's what led you to the run. But before we get into that, let me ask you something more basic. What is sport management?
It is the business side of sports, and that entails so many things: marketing and promotions, administration, merchandising, a lot of different avenues that you can go into. My focus was going to be administration. I wanted to be an athletic director at a collegiate level at some point. I mean, that was in my head. I did it at the middle school level when I got out of college because you take what you can get, you know.
Yeah.
And found out very quickly it was a thankless job for very little money and massive, massive, massive amounts of hours. And it's a very difficult field it's a difficult field to get into at the level that you would need to get into to make it worth your time financially. And there's a finite set of jobs available. There's only so many schools out there. And when people get those jobs, they like to hang on to those jobs for quite a while. It's something that I didn't do my due diligence researching before I chose the profession. I actually
I would
went to
guess so.
college with a broadcast journalism scholarship and switched my major when I got there. Now I do a lot of sports broadcasting. I'm a play-by-play announcer, and I do a lot of broadcasting now. So I guess I should have stuck with the first thing.
Broadcasting sounds a lot more interesting.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, it's to me it sounds like something that is much more defined, and the scope is very clear. While the sports management sounds like, okay, maybe you were too lazy to do an MBA and not good enough to be the athlete itself, and then you try to be in the middle, something like that. It's I don't know, doesn't sound like something real. But broadcaster, yeah, for sure. One of my favorite uh, comedians, Bill Burr, he was a sports commentator, but he would write articles. He would just choose a team every week and he would bash them. Like he would say all kinds of shit about that without barely knowing sometimes, the team and all that. But that would raise a lot of controversy, and he wrote in a very funny way. So he was actually inserting his comedy into sports, you know, discussion, and then and raising out the hell, and he built an audience like that. It was very interesting.
I imagine that shaped his type of comedy that he has today. I absolutely
It
love it.
does. It does. Did you ever see what they call the Philadelphia incident?
I have seen the video of it.
My God, how much shit he said in 13 minutes. It's incredible. I
The thing I
recommend
love
it.
about him is he does not back down either. He does not
No.
back down.
And at the end, they were applauding, they were loving it. So, but it was a completely hostile situation. It's
Yeah.
not like you have an audience and then a heckler in the middle. No, he had the entire audience
Yeah.
heckling him, and it was completely hostile. And in 13 minutes, he turned it around. It was incredible. But so you decide to run, but why that format? There are many ways. If you want to do something really challenging, there are still many ways to do it. How did you choose this particular way?
I think that, I really, you turned me on to the Ari Ramos podcast that you did.
Mhm.
And I listened to that entire thing last night and just was blown away at the similarities that I felt mentally that you two shared, that you shared on the podcast that you were interviewed across America on Foot, and what I was feeling and what I felt throughout that. It's something that I'm not really sure I could accurately describe within my mind why that's something I chose, as far as what do we have? Why do we have that, whatever it is in us that says we're going to do something incredibly, as you said, illogical, completely wild and
It
off
doesn't
the
make
grid.
any sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I feel like I've always had something eating inside me for some sort of adventure, can I do something that would be greater than myself? Something that long after I'm gone will maybe have an impact on other human beings, or maybe will have impacted people while I'm here even. And again, it was based out of what made me decide to do the run was based out of, I would say, as close as I could be, if not, I was at rock bottom. I was 30 years old. I was massively overweight. I weighed about 270 pounds at the time. I had just gotten fired from my last job. Um, I was miserable where I was. I was I had taken I had taken recreational and social and recreational drinking to an excess at that point. Like I had gone beyond where you need to go. And I, in fact, I love that I can just be candid on here. I had gotten picked up on a Tuesday night in my hometown of Spencer, West Virginia, a place of 5,000 people where everybody knows everybody, for a DUI. And the police officer who pulled me over, I have literally known my entire life, and who knows my family. Um, he took me up to the local station, and he proceeded to read me the riot act, if you will, just kind of like, how dare you do this? My kids are on this road. I've known your family all your life. Just what he did that night was save my life. I still send him Christmas cards. He saved my life because he saved me from myself at that moment. It was the low point of my life. And had he not done something and seen me and gotten me, I don't know where I would be right now, if I would be right now. What that did was that forced me to confront who I was, what I was doing, and it was not good. In the midst of all that, in the midst of my low point, I had I was actually with my parents for a few days after that happened, just trying to talk through it or whatever. And I was sitting on the couch, and it just so happened that I was flipping the channels, and on came an ESPN 30 for 30 documentary. That series, I'm sure you're very familiar with.
No, never heard of it.
You never heard of it? The ESPN.
I don't watch TV, so I don't.
Okay. Well, it's
I
a
never
documentary series.
watched anything on ESPN.
Wow.
Never,
Okay.
ever, like nothing.
This is a documentary series. It was 30 documentaries in,
Okay.
about 30 different topics. And this one was called Into the Wind. And it was a documentary about Terry Fox. I don't know if you know the name Terry
I
Fox.
know that story, yeah.
Yes. So this was a story about Terry Fox, who, for those of your listeners who will hear this, was a Canadian basketball player back in the late 70s, early 80s, who after high school had gone to college to play basketball and developed some knee pain, ended up finding out he had some rare form of cancer, and he had to get his leg amputated from the knee. And so what did he decide to do? He decided on a prosthetic, he was going to run across Canada. And I'm watching this thing, and I'm sitting in my parents' living room at 30 years old, fat, out of shape, half lit, half drunk. And I'm watching this guy do this all, on one leg with cancer. And it just, whatever it was, Milton, I don't know. It hit me all at once. And it was that moment. It was that exact moment watching that documentary. I looked at myself and I said, okay, I need to do something like that, because I have become so all consumed with myself and how just miserable I was that I had forgotten my service to others throughout my life that made my life what it was to that point. I had enjoyed that, and I had lost it for my 20s. And so it was November of 2010 when that hit me. And within weeks, we were planning the trip.
So November 2000. So you had like 2 months of preparation.
I started preparing physically January 1st.
Wow.
I started the run April 1st. So I did 2-a-days for 3 months to lose as much weight as I could.
Yeah, because when I met you, you look like in pretty good shape.
Yeah. I did 2-a-days for 3 months until we left to go out to California, and I had lost from 270 down to 215. I started my run at 215. When I actually saw you, I was probably already down to 200, 205, I would say.
Yeah.
So I had lost a significant amount of weight by then.
Cool. And how did your mother get involved in that? I remember calling the car the mothership. That was cool, and she was she was so kind and so friendly. I don't know. I really like it meeting her as
You met
well.
the good side of her.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Actually, uh, I think my sense of adventure absolutely comes from my mother. My
Uh-huh.
my father's more of a he's comfortable where he is, what he's doing. My mom, who was a school teacher for 30 years, never wanted to be a teacher, always wanted to travel and do
Uh-huh.
things, and never did. Became a social studies teacher and geography and started talking about places and things that she never did. I think she just jumped at the chance in multiple ways. Number one, to have an adventure herself, but number two, to watch her son come back to life and to be a part of it and to be the person I needed on the road to hold me accountable, to help me. You know, she's a
Uh-huh.
mom still.
That
So,
must have been very, very pleasant to see you on the way up.
yes,
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it was, it was, I think it was very difficult for her. It was very difficult in the day-to-day operations. She was behind the scenes and did a whole lot of stuff that's did not get recognized. I tried to tell people about it, and it's just
Hmm.
she did so many things behind the scenes. And in my many moments of weakness, as you will know, she was strong when she needed to be. She told me that I told her, no matter what, do not let you quit. And she
Hmm.
held me to account at every moment, at every turn that I wanted to quit. She refused to do it. I don't think I could have done it with anyone else being my road crew.
Hmm. That's such a beautiful story, man. That I've I talked to on podcasts to several people that that ran or walked across America, and the stories, they have this thread in common of rediscovery, or of trying to of measuring oneself against something so big, so difficult, that they couldn't be absolutely sure they could finish. And I think that's the greatest beauty of the transcontinental run, is that it's so long and so big that you can't be sure. There is no amount of preparation that will guarantee that you are going to end it. Like, if you decide to run a marathon, I respect marathons. I don't want to give the impression that I don't. It's painful, it's difficult, but you can finish. You may not be able to finish in the cutoff time, in the 6 hours, but you can crawl your way to the end, right?
You can conceptualize that.
It's not, I would say it's difficult, but at least you can finish. You may not finish for many reasons, but it's totally within your capacity, if you just ignore the blisters and keep going.
Mhm.
Walk, if necessary. But there is no way that you can be certain that you can finish something that is going to last 3 4 months and requires all your dedication, and you are going to break down, you're going to get hurt, you're going to risk being run over. You will fail, you cry, you give up, and you try again. And I talked to several people that they actually gave up, or they stopped, they took a break because it was breaking them down mentally, and they had to restart. They had to go back to where they stopped and continue from there, which takes an entire new amount of determination, to to restart something that you gave up on is hard, is hard as well.
I'm surprised that people can do that.
Yeah, it's some pretty amazing stories that way. But when you were talking about the challenge, it reminded me of a line from the book and the movie Into the Wild, that he says that at some point in your life you need to measure yourself against something bigger than yourself. And I like another line, that this one I cannot remember where it's from, that says that if you are going to choose a big challenge, it has to be something it has to be small enough that it's possible, physically possible to do, but it has to be big enough that you cannot be sure. And I really like those words. It's so big that you can't be sure that you can finish it. Another line that maybe it's my original idea, but probably not. Very few things that we say or think are original. Very few. But this one I cannot remember where I got it from. That says that that as you are doing it, you have to be. It has to be something that the person that decides to do it, that the version of yourself that decided to do the run is not capable of doing it yet. You will have to first grow into the person that can possibly do it. And that is the training. That's what the training is doing, right? You are trying to grow into someone that will have a chance. And and that's where the losing weight and preparation and training and all that stuff comes in. Then you have a fighting chance, but you can still not be sure. You will still have to win that battle every day,
Every second.
every second. And when you are every morning that you are crawling, literally crawling out of your sleeping bag, if you camp, right? When you're crawling out of the sleeping bag in the cold, it's still dark, and it's so tempting to stop, especially during the last month. To me, some people report that they wanted to give up many times. Me too. I wanted to give up many times, but all those times were during the last month. Like
That's so interesting to me.
The first 3 months, I was solid. I was absolutely solid. The last month, I had to fight every day, especially on the second run, when I was already like in Mississippi, Alabama, Florida. Every day was a battle. Sometimes I would be walking through a city and I would see there is a bus station right there, or there is an airport right there. I can just walk in and I'll be home today, right? And sometimes I would look at it and I would say, I would feel the battle inside of me, and thankfully the keep going side won every time, but it was not an easy win.
It's interesting that you say that. When I was planning this run to begin with, my original plan was to walk out my front door and run west. And what I realized very, very quickly in my own head before I even started training in January was, as you said, you've got to at least take a mental step of, there's got to be something in you that says, maybe. I just said, if I walk out my door and try this, I will quit. I told myself I will quit.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to the other coast, and therefore I have no excuses. That's why my mom was
a lot of that during training. I would get like the bus in Miami costs $2.25. So I would get out of the house with that exact money, and I would go to a bus stop, and there was a bus stop near my house where several lines went through that. And I would go there and get into the first bus that came in, no matter what the destination is. And I would pay and ride that bus to the end of the line. So the end of the line could be 2 miles away, or 5 miles away, or 15 miles away. I didn't know, right? And
Yeah.
then when I got there, I didn't have money to ride back, so I had to walk back.
Oh, wow.
And it was, sometimes there was one line that was tough. It would go almost 20 miles away, and that one was, that was a long walk back. So I didn't bring more money, I didn't bring credit cards, I didn't bring ID, nothing. Just just my cell phone to have the maps, right? And a bottle of water, one bottle,
Oh,
one bottle. And I thought, okay, I have to find water along the way. I'll have
yeah.
to ask people for water. That was also, I did a lot of mental preparation. I would say that where it comes to the physicality of it, to the athleticism, I am much closer to Homer Simpson. But when it comes to the mental preparation for it, I am a fucking astronaut. Okay, I am a superhero. I know how to hack my brain
Yeah.
to do this thing. So, for instance, I used to get out of the house with a small bottle of water, those for that you put on your backpack, right?
Mm.
And so it would have like half a liter, for instance. So I knew that I'm going to run out of water along the way. So I knew I would have to ask people. So I'm forcing myself to ask people for water because I know that later on the road, I will have to ask people for help all the time, because I was going to do my second run with just a small backpack. I wouldn't even carry food. So I knew I would depend on the kindness of others. So I thought I need to get used to to need the kindness of strangers from the training. I also did my training at night. So I would, like in the evening, I would go, uh, do things and do the shopping and help friends move their furniture, or do whatever to get myself as tired as possible.
Hmm.
And then I would go for the walk, because you don't do your walk when you're refreshed. You're doing your walk when you were already tired. You woke up tired, right? It's like, I talked to a guy that he trained for ultra marathons, and he said that an ultra marathon being about the same distance as 4 or 5 marathons back to back, right? He said training for a marathon is useless, because then I'm training for the first 20% of the run. That is the easy one. I need to train for the last 20%.
Yeah.
So he likes to dance salsa. So he said that he would go to the clubs and dance salsa for 4 or 5 hours, and that's through the night. And then when around the time that the sun is rising, then he would go out and run a half a marathon or a marathon. So he would start already really exhausted.
Yeah.
And then, so he said, I'm always training for the last 20%, because that's the part that needs the most training, right? And I thought, oh yeah, so he's not doing a physical training that is in any measurable way very superior in terms of physical preparation. What he's doing is he's training his brain. Another thing I did is I got used to buy food when I was in South Beach, and I would do just like a very long walk. Like I would do, let's say, 20 miles that night. I would start around midnight, and I would walk by a pizza place that they are open 24/7, and I would buy a pizza. So I would get a small box, and I would be, jogging or fast walking with a pizza in my hands and eating, because I wanted to get used to eating as I walk. And that was very good, because while I was on the run, I like to do my resting intervals at regular intervals. So I would do a 1 hour and a half. Uh, every 1 hour and a half, I would stop for 15 minutes, no matter if I am tired or not. I would stop those 15 minutes
Yeah.
and stretch a little bit. I would sit down. I would put a tarp on the ground, and and relax, lay down. Uh, Even if I'm not tired yet. But those 90 minutes were divided in three 30-minute blocks. And I tried to jog or walk or run in different styles. So if I was doing like a more of a natural run, 40 foot first, the first 30 minutes, then I would walk the next 30 minutes, then I would jog the next 30 minutes. So I would keep switching the style to use the muscle groups a little in a little bit of a different way every 30 minutes. And that worked out. But those were ways that I discovered to protect myself from injury, and to try to save energy and get used to having food going through my system all the time. So I would buy in gas stations all across the country. You may be in a place where there are no good restaurants, or at least there are no good restaurants open by the time that you're going through. But every gas station sells bananas. It's very interesting. No matter what, you can be in the shittiest place in America, there will be bananas in the gas station. So I got used to eating bananas, and because I don't like sweet stuff when I'm running. I don't buy gels or protein bars or anything with that is very sugary, because it makes me feel weird. But I got used to eating bananas. The secret is eat them very slowly, and then your body is gradually processing that as you walk. Um, so all my training was mostly mind hacking. By the way, my friend Eden, she introduced me to a guy in Los Angeles just before my first run. That and keep in mind, at that time I was 230 pounds or so. I really look a lot more like Homer Simpson than anything else. And I and he did several Ironman,
Hmm.
so he was a very competent, very competitive triathlete. Uh, he asked me, "So what is it that you want to do?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to run across America." He said, "And how long you want to do it?" I said, "Oh, I want to do it in 100 days. So it's about 100 marathon distance. So I'll run a marathon a day." He said, "No, you won't." I said, "That's not encouraging." He said, "No, you are going to run one marathon, and you are going to practice 99 times. If you do that inversion, it will take a lot of weight out of your shoulders, and you're going to understand that the only marathon that the only day you're going to really let it go will be the last day, because
Yeah.
you don't need to run the day after.
Yeah.
But every other day before that, you need to always keep in mind that you cannot go too hard, because the next day you need to do it again.
Yeah.
Next day you need to do it again. Like, anyone can walk out of the door and walk 26 miles. Anyone can do it. It'll be painful, but they can do it, right? But doing that again the next day is a much more difficult challenge. And then again the next day, and then again the next day. And so he also told me, look, in the beginning, our performance is not going to be that great. So if you are 2/3 of the way in every day, it's pretty good already. So if you want to do 26 miles a day and you manage to, the first day you can do it, but the second day, if you make it close to 20, it's pretty good already. Because your average will keep getting better very gradually. The last 1/3, you are doing more than a marathon every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so be easy on yourself a little bit on the beginning and manage. And he also told me, learn to manage your blisters. If you don't get your blisters under control, you will not solve this puzzle, you know,
Yeah.
because this puzzle is about energy management and blister management. You know, if you don't solve that, you don't solve it.
You know, listening to your preparation for your runs, it reminds me of just how stupid I truly was before this thing began. I'm telling you, Milton, I did not prep mentally at all because I didn't know what I didn't know. And
Uh-huh.
I didn't have or didn't search out the people that I would have needed to search out to understand that mental training. What I did was just full bore, again, 2 a days, lose as much weight as I could. I did have a buddy who was former professional cyclist who helped me with some nutrition aspects of things. I went to our local physical therapist, and when I told him I was going to try to do this, I said, "Do you have any advice?" He said, "Yes, don't do it."
Yeah.
Um, but mine was purely physical for the 3 months I was training for that. But I also, when I listened to your podcast with Ari last night, it just reminded me again. We're all a little bit nuts, but I was in such awe of you and now her from her story and the others who do the I'm by myself, whether it's with a backpack or with a car, because I knew going into it that I had prepped a van, that I had my mother with me, that I always had food stores in the van, that I
Mhm.
had the back of the van to sleep in. There was never that problem in my head that I had to worry about those things. Although, you know, the day to day by myself is by myself on the road, I never had those worries, which always, you know, I'm all inspired by, as crazy as I know what I did was, there's a level above that 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 I didn't even reach. Now, the one thing I did say that I was going to do, that I made such a mental pact with myself, was I said that I was not going to walk one step of the run. I was not going to walk one step. That was my biggest mental challenge, because in those moments, and as you know, there are so many of them when you're hurting so badly, you're
Uh-huh.
so exhausted. There was moments that I wanted to quit. I wanted to stop running. I wanted to just walk. And I made it a point that I had to run every single step of it. That was one of my things.
But that's totally okay, because when you look at it, every rule that we impose ourselves is arbitrary, because the entire thing doesn't make any sense in the
I know.
practical sense. You know, you're not trying to prove that you can actually go across the country, you know, on foot.
To
You know,
anybody
you're not
else.
trying to make airplanes obsolete. You know, that is what is the sense of walking from one city to another, but you cannot make the entire distance. So you have to stop at a certain point, you mark that point, then someone drives you to another city to spend a night in a hotel, then drives you back to that point, and then you continue. All of this is completely arbitrary. So the rules that you impose on yourself, that there may be, for instance, that you're not going to walk, you're going to only run, you know, it's your rule, you own it. It's completely yours. You
And
know,
why do we put those rules in
we
place?
we are not following. That's one of the reasons that I love this. We are not following any set of rules that was determined by someone else.
Yes.
Uh, for instance, in my case, I determined that I wanted to go from ocean to ocean. You didn't decide that. You decided to go home.
Yes.
So that is a determination that you made. You own it. There is no way for it to be wrong, right? You cannot be wrong in setting up the rules of your own game, that you're the only one playing
Yes.
and you hold the scoreboard, right? So it's completely yours. Uh, so that is tremendous. Uh, uh, I would say freedom in a way. You know, the
Absolutely.
ultimate freedom is being is is embracing uh, uh, hardship voluntarily, right? The you choose the cross that you want to carry, right? And then you do it, and
Yeah.
you may suffer with the effort, but in your mind you are very happy because you're
Yeah.
doing what you decided to do, right?
Yeah.
So that is very liberating and allows you to grow. So on the first one, yeah, it was challenged and all that, but the second time for me it was a pilgrimage. So now running was even less important. I just wanted to meet people along the
Yeah.
way. So I was meeting all the hashers and my friends and couch surfers and and acquaintances and new strangers, and I was just trying to be as social as possible and having the greatest time possible going back, and without a stroller this time. But how was it for you finishing physically? Because when I was doing the last, especially the last 2 weeks, I was feeling some fear that I was hurting myself, like especially my hips.
Yeah.
I was a little bit in fear, and I did, because I was so interested in finishing on a Thursday, because I wanted to finish when my friends my friends in Miami, they are hashers mostly, and they run on Thursday evenings.
Yeah.
So I wanted to finish on a Thursday evening. But when I calculated my last few days, my last 12 or 13 days, I noticed that I was 1 day late. So I had to do, I knew that I would have to do 14 days of running in 13 days.
Yeah.
And I was trying, but it was not working out. I was exhausted and tired, and it was getting hot. It was April already. So Florida in April already has some hot days. Uh, and it was really tough. And that during the last week, I got so I was determined to finish on a Thursday. I thought, I'm in the best shape of my life at the same time,
Yeah.
right? I'm the lightest. I was down to 185, and I thought, okay, like, here's what I'm going to do. I will do 2 days. I will do a 3-day run in 2 days. So I did a 43 and a 45 miler, but I took Vicodin. So I was numbing the pain.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I'm going to do something potentially stupid like that, I will do it very close to the end, so I don't cause the damage and then have months of walking after that.
Yeah.
If I am causing some damage, I'll be able to relax just 2 or 3 days later.
Yeah.
And in fact, after I did that, and then the next day I still took some Vicodin, but then I still had 2 days of going through Fort Lauderdale and Miami, in which I was not taking any drugs.
Yeah.
And those 2 days, I was deliriously tired. Like I was feeling so beat up. I met with there was a running club, one of the very few running clubs that I visit. Uh, and they were on my way. I didn't have to get out, not even a block out of my way
Yeah.
to stop by. And I stopped it and I told them, if I stay here inside the store standing, I will not be able to run. So I need to keep walking. I cannot stop.
Yeah.
So I left and then they started doing their run, but I was shuffling. I was so slow that of course they all passed me by and then I didn't see them again. Uh, because I was really, really slow. But my Hasher friends, they understood it, and they would some of them even they were going with me, and then they would run, meet the others, bring them back, and
Yeah.
keep helping in that sense. And they explained to everybody else, this guy is at the is he's at the ropes end,
Yeah.
which is an expression from sailing. When you are at the ropes end, you are at the last
Yeah.
resource. And there is another expression which is at the wits end. When you're really above your head. I think I was on the ropes end and the wits end at
Both.
the same time. So, but how was it with you?
I think I think that my trials and tribulations physically and mentally that I experienced consistently throughout the run led me to kind of a different finish. My again, like I said, I punished myself just getting to what I thought would be in some sort of shape to start the run in the beginning. The most I ever ran in training at one time was 8 miles. And so I went out having never even accomplished 20 miles, which is what I decided to do daily. I did 20 miles a day until, as you mentioned, I realized about midway through that my time frame that I needed to get back or needed to get back wasn't going to be proper because we had miscalculated about 300 miles of the trip. And so I went through some very difficult physical, uh, obviously right at the beginning, but when I went up the Continental Divide at the end of, started, I guess, late Arizona and up near Show Low, Arizona, and then through the high desert country of New Mexico, I really struggled to be at the beginning of that with like some asthmatic feelings of being at elevation. It was a couple of weeks of real lightheaded pain, obviously the body, I came down off the backside into the flatter area towards the end of New Mexico and into the top part of Texas, feeling tremendous physically
Mhm.
and at that time mentally. And
Oxygen makes such a difference.
yeah, and I think it really did. I guess I was fortunate each moment and each difficult step that it prepared me when I got a little break at the end of it for the next step, which was for me, Kansas, which is, as you guys, I remember listening last night to the western part of Texas where it's just flat and straight and there's nothing.
Mhm.
Preparing yourself mentally was the challenge at that point because physically, straight was fine. Straight is nothing for me after what I just went through. So I
Uh-huh.
was prepared physically. And so it was nothing but mental every day trying to battle that straight, nothing, straight, nothing. So I got through that. And about the time I was feeling mentally strong, physically strong, again, I started my run April 1st. So I'm running now in Missouri at the end of Kansas and Missouri in the middle of the fourth hottest summer on record,
Wow.
where there are heat warnings every day. It never was, I think I went back and looked at my blog for 6 weeks. It was never with heat and humidity less than 105 degrees. Most of
Wow.
the time it was 105 to 115 with a heat index. It was 95 to 98 to 100% humidity. It was 6 weeks of that. So I had prepared myself to that point, but I wasn't prepared for what hit me. And one thing I've done so poorly since my run is stay in contact with people who understand what this is like, what this feeling is. And when I try to explain to people like situations in general as to there is no quitting, there is no stopping, I passed out numerous times 5 miles into my run into the van. Like just, I was near heat exhaustion. I was near probably heat strokes numerous times. There were a couple of days where I had to cut runs off at 5 miles because I was going to die probably, refusing to go to the hospital. I should have shut it down. It's just something in me that said, there's no way. That was 6 weeks of that. And so that lasted all the way into mid-Indiana. And once the weather broke in mid-Indiana, and I had a couple of days of easier runs, flatter, cooler weather, I had a day off to recover. Once I hit Kentucky, I felt like Superman. I felt like there is nothing that's going to stop me. I am going to breeze through the end of this run. I mean, and just when you say things like that, get a little bit too big for your damn britches. And that's what I did. Right about Georgetown, Kentucky, I had a really bad back spasm. I've had issues with my back since I was in high school, where I'd get real bad back spasms, whether it was nerve endings or I don't know what it was, but like it would cripple me for a week. And I knew when it happened that I was screwed. I was like, I'm not going to be able to walk, move, let alone run. And I wasn't going to do it without running. Like I said, that lasted until the end of Kentucky. And so when that went away, when that finally subsided, I had 3 or 4 days in West Virginia of, it wasn't that nervous, scared feeling because I had gone through 6 weeks of scares in the Midwest with the heat and humidity. And then I went through one big scare with my back for about a week and a half. And once that subsided, I had 4 days left. I didn't have time to get scared at that point at the end of the run. I was just elated that I didn't die at that point.
Did you ever have this experience of starting the day and seeing a mountain over there in the horizon, like way over there in the horizon, and then you run all day, you spend 8 to 10 hours on the road, and you finish that day and you still have that mountain on the horizon? You
Numerous
didn't reach
times.
it.
That happened when I was coming into Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, it
There was a
happened to me
mountain
in
range
Arizona.
right past that.
Yeah, in
It took me
Arizona
4
and
days
also
to
in,
get to it.
yeah, and also in Texas. When you come out of El Paso going east and you go over Guadalupe Pass,
Yeah.
then no, before Guadalupe Pass, that is the Salt Flats, and you see Guadalupe Pass all the way on the other side. But it's this huge lake, and there is this valley that you see through the entire valley and the mountains on the other side. And yeah, you're going downhill for an entire day, and the mountain is still in front of you. And then the next day it's going to be uphill.
Yeah. It happened numerous times where you just your eyes tell you, oh, I'm almost there. No, 4 days later, you're still not there. You're just like, when the hell am I going to get to this thing? And maybe I shouldn't have wished for it because it's uphill at that point. But I feel like I cheated Texas. I only ran through the northern panhandle for about 40 miles. I took a left north right at the end of New Mexico.
That is a whole lot of same over there. It's I wouldn't say it's very different. West Texas, I would say from El Dorado all the way to Guadalupe Pass, is one big bunch of nothing interesting, and because all they have there is desert, dust, and oil fields. So that gives, however, that affords you a logistical advantage, because there are so many oil rigs and so much construction and work. There are so many contractors.
Yes.
So there are contractor vans all the time, and they start noticing you because they see you on the road. Next day, they see you on the road 20, 30 miles ahead,
Yeah.
that they notice, oh, this guy's traveling on foot. And then the next day they stop.
Yeah.
They stop and ask if you need anything. So every day you are approached by contractors, most of
Yeah.
them Mexican. And they will make sure that you have water, that you have food. They will take orders. They will ask, do you want me to bring anything tomorrow? And they will get it for you.
Yeah.
Or they will bring you beer.
That reminds me that I wish I would have known you before because I was so shocked when I saw that you had a little 6-pack of Bud Light. I was like, you wait, beer? You're like, oh yeah, great carbohydrates for the.
And,
I'm like,
and remember
what have
that
I
I
been
asked
missing?
that I asked you guys to bring me ice, and your mother
Yeah.
drove to town and brought ice to me
Yeah.
while you were running. That was so cool. But yeah, many times I asked people because it was easy to carry beer. I didn't drink that much. I would drink like between 4 and 6 beers a day,
Yeah.
which is nothing considering that you're doing a marathon or more.
Yeah.
You
You're
know,
burning what, 5,
you're
6,000?
burning all of. Oh yeah, no, I was burning 6,000 calories a day.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was nothing. But I would run off ice in just a few hours.
Yeah.
So when I met people, and one of the things that I like is that the contractor vans always have the big coolers, those big orange coolers that they
Yeah.
would fill up with bottles in the morning, and they would fill up with ice. And then they always had ice.
Yeah.
So I would always ask them, hey, can you give me some ice? I have what to drink, but I need ice. That was awesome. One day, very close to Pecos, a contractor van, stopped on the side of the road. And first a couple stopped on a Silverado or some truck like that. And they gave me some waters. They had a cooler in the car, and they gave me some Gatorade and water, and I think they had some fruits, so maybe some banana or something, and they
Yeah.
gave that to me. And a few minutes later, this contractor truck, stopped, and two guys jumped out of the truck, and they came to talk to me, and they were super friendly, two Mexican guys. It really helped that I spoke Spanish, because a lot of them couldn't speak much English anyway.
Yeah.
So it was very helpful. So they asked, hey, we saw you on the road, yesterday and today. We want to know if you need anything. And I said, well, I need ice if you have any. And so they brought the cooler. I transferred some bottles of water and a lot of ice. And the other went back to the truck. One of them went back. And then he came back holding his shirt, and he was making a bow with his shirt, and he said, look, this is all I have for you. And he had a lot of candy
Mm-hmm.
and some bullets. He had like some 20 bullets. He said, I hope you have a 45. I said, no, but thank you, but no, it's not a 45. And then I cannot eat candy.
Yeah.
I said, I'm sorry, because I get nauseated if I eat
Yeah.
candy like that. So, but I appreciate the gesture, I appreciate the offer. In
Again, that
fact,
reminds me of. I feel like I've cheated the group, and when I say the group, like this group of people who have done this, because
Mhm.
there's not a lot.
Mhm.
Because as much as I try to explain to other people how the process is, what it was like, how hard, well, you just can't. And I think you mentioned that with Ari. I was like, unless you have done it, you just can't. But you can't understand
Yeah.
how much it means to have the support that you have.
If you have done something else but equally challenging, at least you understand that you cannot understand,
Yeah.
and you can compensate for that. Like I have friends that they ran across America, but I also have friends that sailed around the world. I have friends that rode bicycles from Europe to China. I have a friend that he rode from South Africa to England. I have a friend too that he went from Turkey to England on a Lada taxi, which is weird, really, but it's a very primitive car. So
Yeah.
I know people that did a lot of crazy different stuff like that. One of my friends went to the North Pole pulling a sled. So that badass things or weird things. So when people have some experience like that in their past,
Yeah.
they understand that they understand that they cannot understand the particulars of your adventure, but they know how to communicate with you. They know how
Yes.
to listen, and they know that there are parallels between their experience and yours. And I think that when we talk to another runner, to another transcontinental runner, we have empathy for each
Yeah.
other. But when we meet with an adventure of another kind of adventure, then we have more technical information exchange, because
Yeah.
now they can give you a different angle. Most of what I think was the really good information that I had for my training was because I I avoid the advice of regular runners.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to people training for marathons or 5Ks or 10Ks because I thought if I prepare for a 5K, I'll be able to run a 5K.
Yeah.
But you don't prepare for a 5K and accidentally run an ultra marathon.
Yeah.
No, you need to prepare for what you're going to do in one way or another. Doesn't mean that your training has to be the same distance. For instance, I know ultra runners that during their training they do between 5 and 8 miles, but they are preparing to do 50 to 100 on the day of the run.
Yeah.
But again, they don't need to run the next day, right?
Yeah.
So I thought I'm preparing for something that will require all my capacity, but then I need to do it again and again and again and again. So I thought, what is the kind of adventure that requires that? I read articles from people that pulled sleds over ice for days, people that did pilgrimages. There are a lot of books and articles about El Camino de Santiago, for instance, where people do an average of 12 miles a day, but it's 12 miles every day.
Yeah.
So, and if you ever do El Camino, I'll tell you, you are going to find it too easy. So in that sense, it's boring, but the social interaction can be really interesting,
Yeah.
especially, but don't do that on a year of election. Don't do it during the World Cup, because that's all the Europeans want to talk about is football, right? So don't do it during the World Cup like I did, or just before an election, because that's going to be boring as fuck.
Yeah.
But if you do that in a normal time, the interaction is super super nice, super interesting. But back to the training. So I read a lot of articles about people that were preparing for swimming several days. There are people that do that kind of thing. They
Yeah.
go and they try to swim, like there was that
The
lady
English
that,
Channel or something.
yeah, or no, but I'm talking more about people that like to. There are people that train for swimming from island to island.
Yeah.
So they know they'll be doing that several days. Uh, or people that go to cross Norway during winter in skiing. So they know there will be cross country skiing for like a week.
Yeah.
And so I try to follow their recommendations, their ideas, instead of listening to runners, because the runners, they focus a lot on gear also, which is a waste of time for me, and they focus a lot on injuries, which I don't intend to have any.
Yeah.
So it's and also they focus a lot on speed. They are trying to run, like you. I didn't care to run. I could walk most of it. In fact, the first time I walked 80% of it, and I did 20% or so jogging. While the second time I walked 90% of it, but fast walking.
Yeah.
So it's fast packing. Uh, and I jogged I jogged the most pleasant 10%.
Yeah.
That was it. Now I'm planning to do another one, but this time in the Alps. So I want to make a map of the most beautiful and interesting trails along and across the Alps,
Yeah.
and choose a combination that will take me through the most, basically the most interesting and beautiful trails, from Vienna all the way to France.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell all my friends, all the runners, the crazies, everybody, hey, join in any segment that you want. But I will try to do the entire thing,
Yeah.
you know. But sometimes between the end of one trail and the beginning of the other, I may be taking the train,
Yeah.
because you may be crossing the Alps to the south side, but the next trail you want to start from the north side. So
Yeah.
you take the train back, or you take, you get a ride somehow. So it's not like it's not a continuous run. It's just a combination of doing all the great trails in one shot.
I was
Uh,
actually shocked that when we did prep work for my run, and what we did was we used Google Maps to try
Correct.
to actually go down and look at the roads that we were going to try to run on. And knowing that we couldn't use interstates, we were down in the bottom states. I was shocked that we only had to make 3 or 4 on the fly adjustments to our routes. And there was only one place where there was nowhere, the road ended. And so we had to backtrack and then go north and then start from there. And that was at the end of New Mexico where I was. I ended up having to backtrack and go north. And then it was very interesting, but in places that aren't I guess there are some places probably in the United States that there are just dead end roads all over the place. I was shocked that I didn't come
Many,
into that.
especially along Texas,
Yeah.
because there are entire regions, like between Pecos and El Paso. It's an area, I would say, about the size of half of Rhode Island, that it's all private. It's all land that is private, a combination of private and public land, but they are oil leases. So one company goes and leases all that land
Yeah.
to take the oil out of it. And then because they have all the properties under lease, they can close the roads.
Yeah.
So they put gates and they put private security. So there were times that I would choose a route that the route exists on the map, but I would get there and see that, oh, now there is a gate and there is a sign explaining that now this is private road, even though it's public road, but it's private.
How does that affect you mentally, or at that point did it affect you?
It was annoying, but I was prepared for that. I knew that it was going to happen.
Okay.
So because I did a lot of traveling across America by car and by motorcycle before. And sometimes by motorcycle, I wanted to get into a region to camp, to find a place to camp. And I couldn't ride in because it was gated in.
Yeah.
So I saw that already, and I knew it was going to happen. Like there was a part going through California that I really wanted to do, which was going to go around just east of Los Angeles. It was going. I would go near Salton Sea and to the south side of this mountain, and the interstate was on the north side. And when I got there, I saw, okay, this entire area is closed now. No, actually, it's just south of Joshua Tree.
Yes.
that entire part is closed. And I thought, oh, that was going to be so beautiful to go through. Uh, so for that, I was prepared. And there were places where, when I was going west, I went through the wind farms in Palm Springs.
Hmm.
I went through the wind farms, but nobody saw me. On the second time, when I was going through the wind farms, the private security saw me, but I was already like 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah.
So now the closest way out was the other way,
Yeah.
going through. And I asked him, look, I'm walking all the way from Los Angeles. We are half a mile to the gate.
Yeah.
Instead of giving me a ride out, why don't you just follow me? Just follow me.
Make
So
sure I leave.
you see that I left,
Yeah.
you do your job, and I keep going. And he said, yeah, no problem. And then he just followed me. And but it was clear I had to keep going. There were a few places like that.
Yeah.
And I was a little concerned with the safety of it, because if you are in public area, I don't mind the police. The police is always very, very, very professional and very friendly
Yeah.
everywhere. Uh, in fact, from the running, I don't remember a single encounter with the cops that was not fine.
Yeah.
Some of them were tense, but for good reasons.
Yeah.
Like they had good reasons to be on guard because of other things that happened or other reports they got.
Yeah.
But still, they were very professional.
Yeah.
But if you are in land that is private security, then I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know if it would be a good idea.
I only had that issue one time out west, and it was whatever the roads that we decided to travel. We were going to go through an Indian reservation, the Morongo Valley Indian Reservation.
Mm-hmm.
And so to approach that, you had to call and ask for permission to run through the land. And so we called early, and we actually got a hold of, again, the private security that was there. And the guy met us at the entrance, and turns out he was a Iraqi war veteran. Now my run was
Mm-hmm.
to raise money for the Wounded Warrior Project, and
Mm-hmm.
so I was able to meet these veterans and these military members throughout, which was unbelievably wonderful. This
Nice.
guy just happened to be one, and
Mhm.
so not only did he meet me at the gate to say I had permission, he said, "Would you like me to give you an escort through?" I said, "That would be fantastic."
Mhm.
So I've got a police escort, private security escort through the Indian reservation, and I just thought that was so neat. That was the only time though that I actually had an issue with private land, so I was lucky in that manner.
I was escorted through an Indian reservation
Yeah,
by a bunch of very drunk Indians in the morning that invite me for a barbecue and to spend the night in the reserve. And I did it, but they were already shit faced at 9 a.m. But they were funny. They were funny as fuck.
yeah.
And it was at the same time delightful and scary and weird and fun.
It's a surreal
Yeah,
experience.
and I told them uh, when it was time to sleep, several of them were already passed out. I told them, look, I want to walk into the desert and find a place where there is no light pollution, and there I'm going to camp. And and then I meet you guys again in the morning. So they say, all right, the entire reserve is yours. Like just camp anywhere. So I said, all right, I'm going that direction. So I went into that direction, into the darkness, but then I turned into another direction, and I went to camp ways off because I didn't want to be found.
Yeah.
So just that was the only precaution I took. Because I can defend myself pretty well, but not while I'm sleeping.
Yes. I was thinking about that when I was listening to your podcast with Ari last night about she was talking about, worrying about protection like with a gun, and you said it's not for people, it's for the wild animals that you may encounter, and it reminded me
Mostly.
of that. Just reminds me again of just how nuts you guys were to go camping.
It's mostly for animals.
Mostly for animals.
You,
I remember being in the high desert country in the back of the van, and hearing coyotes outside the van and thinking,
the coyotes don't scare me. I had coyotes walking around the tent. They don't. The important thing with the coyotes is the same about black bears. Don't have open food in your tent, because
yeah,
otherwise they'll try to get in. If they can smell any food, so during the early evening, I would eat. Then after eating, I would wash my hands well. I would make sure that I don't have any wrappings or any open package or anything that smells great.
no crumbs that filtered down in the
Yeah,
pockets.
I would really make sure that and then I would have something little. So let's say I'm eating something that has bacon. Then I would keep a little bit of bacon separate. And I would set up my camp, and I would go and dump that bacon like 100 yards away.
Yeah.
So I would put that piece of bacon on a tree or something. So it attracts them in that direction. And I like to tell I have no science to back me up to tell that this is correct. Well, here's what I did. After I set up camp, I pissed around the camp, and I made a circle of piss around it, because that's my way as a mammal to tell
Yep.
that this is my territory, bitches. If you get in, you are doing that at your own risk.
Hey, you're still alive, so whatever it was worked.
I can say, yeah, it worked.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But Ari asked me, but then how I do that? I said, well, you have to just do the dots.
I'd like to see a video of somebody doing that around. I tell you, you mentioned to me that was one of the most prolific or profound podcasts that you have done or been a part of, and I was ill prepared for just how true that was with that. There were so many things, and I tried to keep a mental file system of the things I wanted to mention when we were talking today. And of course, many of those things have gone because I'm getting older and my brain doesn't work very well. One of the things, well, that was one of them, the fear of, of wildlife. But the other one was as you were talking to her about the sole focus of one thing every day, it made it easier to focus on one thing every single day because it's only one thing that you had to deal with. My need for that was beyond what I thought. As I mentioned, as you talked about, the run itself is not physical. After a month of running, my body was so just used to the pain and used to it. It was 4 months of mental stress, taxing. And to tell you what, as I mentioned that I needed to overhaul my life, I did it for many reasons. I did the run for many reasons. An ancillary benefit to that, I didn't know that I was going to be confronted with every single issue I'd ever had in my mind, and I had nothing but time and focus on it to get the shit out of my head. I confronted and took care of everything that was deep down inside. I think the fact that you could only focus on the run was the absolute best thing that ever happened to me.
Oh yeah, all your ghosts will visit you, and you will have the opportunity to deal with them. I thought about every idea that I tried and failed, compare that with the ideas that I tried and succeeded. So I could really put my entire life back on the drawing board and think, okay, these things I'm not going to do anymore. these things I'll do more, you know. I also could think about everybody that I disappointed, and many of those people. Now I had the chance and the courage to get on the phone and talk to them and ask for forgiveness, and that was pretty good, pretty cool.
I was able to do that as well.
Including including uh, uh, I don't want to give the impression that my relationship with my mother was not good. It was all right, but there were many things that through your life, especially through your life as a teenager, annoying your parents,
Hmm.
you know, you can say a lot of things that are hurtful, you can misunderstand them a lot. There are a lot of things that can be residual.
Yes.
And I was able to make a list, and then I went to visit her, and I actually went point by point and explaining to her how I actually appreciate what she was trying to do. That I understand that even through the mistakes that she made, that I know that her intentions and her attempts were for the absolutely very best,
Yes.
and that and I could apologize for my little uh, uh, for my faults and all that, and I I would say my relationship with her was all right before, but now it's fucking awesome. It's
Yeah.
like it turned into something new,
Yeah.
and that was a big, I would say, a big bonus of the result that resulted from that. Also, I have a few friends, a very small number of friends that I felt at liberty to call them anytime. So
Hmm.
I could, especially when I got lonely or tired or discouraged or anything, I could get on the phone and yap with them, sometimes for hours, you know. And the other day I called one of them. I consider him a brother. His name is Carlos. The other, it was, I think, May. So it was like the first kind of a lockdown. Florida never did a very hard lockdown, but it was more or less one.
Yeah.
So I call him and say, during these times that we are going to socialize a lot less than usual, and this summer is going to kind of suck. So I want to remind you that you should feel very free to call me anytime when you want to just vent, because I know how good it was. I know how pleasant it
Yeah.
was to have someone to talk
Yeah.
when you are in such an isolation. You
Yeah.
because in my case, I didn't have anybody to anybody to talk constantly in
Yeah.
person. I would meet several people a day, but it's always new people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I couldn't continue a conversation. That's another interesting thing about pilgrimage, like your Camino de Santiago, because you can meet the same people every day if you do the same pace.
Yeah.
If you're doing 12, 13 miles a day, you can be with the same people every day.
Yeah.
And then you can continue the same conversations, which in a few cases it's going to be amazing,
Yeah.
and in most cases it's going to be a nightmare because most people are boring, but it's very nice.
I
um,
was able to make a list as well.
mhm,
Um, it was very cathartic for me. Um, it was an opportunity for me to thank people
mhm,
daily. So what I did was I created a list before I took off for the run of all of the people who have impacted my life in a significant way that I could come up with. I came up with 123 sets of people, which is fantastic because that's how many running days I had.
mhm.
And so each morning uh, I would record a video saying who I was running for that day and talk real quick about them and what they've done to impact my life.
Wow,
So
what
I
a
was
great
able to
idea.
dedicate each day of my run to another human being in my life. And so they were able to see that and understand that they had an effect on me. And many of these people didn't even know. Like, the first 20 or 30 or so was friends and family members and, people who knew me well. But there
Mhm.
were a whole lot of people who had no idea the effect that they had had on my life. And so it was a really neat thing to be able to run for a person each day and for them to know what they had done for me.
Boy, this is mind blowing. What a good idea.
Yeah.
What a really good idea. I like it so much. I will do it next time I do something.
Yeah.
I will do that. Uh, wow, the impact on them can be fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think that the same way that when we know that we hurt someone, it's good to send them a message,
Hmm.
and acknowledge that, and ask for forgiveness, and it doesn't matter if they forgive you or not. Well, of course it's nicer if they do,
It
but
helps,
but
but
it's but just the fact that you recognize your mistakes, and that you express that in words takes a lot of that psychological load
yeah.
out of your mind. But I imagine that getting out of your chest the your gratitude and
Yes.
expressing that may also be amazing.
It was,
That it can be really important, and force someone else to get that message. In that case, a little video. Ooh.
yeah, I think that the run was twofold in that it wasn't only to clear out all the crap in my head and to confront every issue that I had always had, but it was also an opportunity to explain to these people who, again, I mean, I'm not always the best communicator, and
Mhm.
these people may not even have known that they had an impact on my life, and just an opportunity to just randomly explain to someone what the effect that they've had. Again, it changes my life. It lets me explain that and express it.
Mhm.
Hopefully, it allows other people the opportunity to see it and say, maybe I need to do that as well. Because my run, I come from a town of 5,000 people. Everybody knows everybody. And even yet, when people know people, it's almost as if you get complacent in assuming that people know, and they don't, and people just didn't know, and they were so grateful to even have their name mentioned by me, this little rock star of Spencer, West Virginia at the time.
Wow, thank you for that idea, man. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that changes a lot of things. Just having to make the list is already exciting.
Yes.
Just putting a list together forces you to go really deep in your memories and think of everybody that had a great impact, right?
Yeah.
uh that is fantastic. And especially because you have to go a long way back to and some
Yes.
of these people didn't hear from you in years, and
Yep.
so yeah, that
So
that
the
is.
thing that the ones that were difficult were the ones, the people who had passed already,
Mhm.
and I was always hopeful that their husband or wife or their children or grandchildren or whoever it may be were able to see it. So at least it was something that they could take and say, here's someone saying something wonderful about my late husband. I've had buddies who have passed that I ran for, and it got to their mother somehow, who
Mhm.
I haven't seen forever. And those were wonderful memories. And the great thing about it is on my blog site that I still have up. I have not updated it since the run. It's been 10 years. It'll be 10 years coming up. It's still up. It's still active. It's one of these days I'm going to print everything off that I wrote. I blogged every evening that I could,
Mhm.
but it's a snapshot of that moment of my life for me, but for others as well. I've always had the idea that I wanted to write a book about it, but life gets in the way sometimes. I've been very happily busy since then,
Mhm.
doing many things that I absolutely enjoy and love. Another thing that got me from the podcast with Ari, and again, I'm just like I just keep things keep popping up
Mhm.
from that was everything forevermore is BRAR, before run, after run.
Oh yeah.
Every moment is before the run and after the run. And what she was talking about, what you said is there is nothing in my life now, absolutely nothing that I cannot accomplish. And that's such a freeing thought that even when the daily stresses of life happen,
Yeah.
there is something in me now that is no longer unknown, that I
Late,
know I can
yeah,
get through
late,
anything.
yeah. Lately, I discover another another side of that that is very interesting. I was not. I only became very aware of it very recently. Yes, your life divides between before the run and after the run for you. But I discovered that that also happens for other people,
Yes.
especially people that met you only after the run. The level of trust they have in you, the credibility that you have is very hard to measure. To measure. Uh, I have people that invested in my business. I have people that one of my friends joked long time ago when I finished the first run. He said, "Now, if you tell me that you're going to run to the moon, I will go ahead and buy a telescope. Because I think you can do anything now."
Yeah.
And I heard that from some of my investors. They said, "I know you are not going to, even if you go through some very difficult times, I know you're not going to give up because you got tired of the project. I
Yeah.
know you're going to push through because you did it already in a setting that was extremely difficult."
Yeah.
So they have a level of trust in my determination that there was no reason to have that trust before.
Yeah.
Also, there was no reason for me to have that trust.
Exactly.
Uh, yeah. So now I know, and then it became dangerous. Like now, before I say that I'm going to do something, whatever it is, I think about it. Because
Yes.
if I tell you that I'm going to do something, what is going to be my excuse? Oh, I got tired. I
I
got
think we've
bored.
eliminated the excuses.
Exactly. We run out of excuses now, right? What
Yeah.
am I going to say? Oh no, my my feet hurts. Right? That's not excuse anymore. So I don't know about you, but I became incredibly careful at committing to
Yeah.
anything. And then I would say a third level of benefit that is downstream from everything else. And it's this: if you after you ran across America, or after you pulled a sled to the North Pole, or after you ran a bicycle from Belgium to Beijing, or or rode a motorcycle from South Africa to England, after all those things, if you have to choose, usually while you are doing it, you're choosing what you're going to do next. What can you do? You see how the list of things to do next gets really short,
Yeah.
gets really difficult to build as well. Because how do you top that?
Yeah.
I'm going to I don't know. I have a friend that crossed the Atlantic on a rowing boat. He said setting new goals after that became incredibly difficult.
I when I
Yeah.
was listening to you guys and she Ari asked you about how long it took you after your first run to decide to do the second one. You said just 3 years. You were already ready for a second run across the country, and at that point, I'm sitting there looking, and one of the things, one of the difficult things for me is I do have some relatively serious after effects physically. I've got you mentioned hips. I have a very bad degenerative hip disorder in both my hips right now. It's been, I have dealt with pain since then. Now, thankfully, I'm used to it. And I have
Swimming is for you now.
yeah, swimming, yeah, low
Yeah,
impact. But
low impact.
I I don't know if it was just because it was so cathartic for me from start to finish. I have not had that feeling again. You'd mentioned after the second time, you said it's been
Um,
4 years and I still haven't quite got that.
no, but
I
think
just,
I think you misread me on that, or maybe I didn't express that right. Yes, it took it, I did in 2011,
mhm,
and then again 2014. So 3 years difference, right?
yeah,
But in 2011 and 2012, I was absolutely sure I would not do that again. I didn't have any intention of doing
at
it
all.
at all until I ran the Ragnar in 2013.
Yeah,
And I was alone on the road, and it was an amazing experience being alone in the dark on the side of the road with other runners, but nobody talking to you. I was quiet. I like to be quiet a lot too. Uh, and that, and in that occasion, I thought, I should do it again, but as a pilgrimage.
yeah,
Uh, so I took that decision during the Ragnar,
yeah,
but no, most of that time I was sure I wouldn't do it. And then after I did 2014, I thought I want to do now I did my second Transcon as a pilgrimage.
yes,
It's not a run, it's a pilgrimage. It's a different mindset. So I thought, oh, I like a pilgrimage. So, but now I want to do a short one that is not on the road, that is trails.
yeah,
So I went to Spain in 2016 and did El Camino. I didn't do the entire thing. I did half of it, and I was happy with it. Like
yeah,
I didn't have the goal of going all the way to the end. I wanted to go all the way to feel happy about it, to
yeah,
feel satisfied. Okay, I got it, and I like it. And so 2 weeks, I did 2.5 weeks. So that was about half of it.
mhm,
And but since then, sometimes people ask, so what are you going to do? Are you going to run again? I said, no, I don't have, no, because now I chose other challenges
yeah,
that I consider them bigger in one way or another.
yeah,
And the to me, the greatest challenge that I chose is that I want to build a boat. And
yeah,
I am progressing on that project. I'm even building another boat as part of that project. So to build the big boat, I have to build the other one first, because it's going to facilitate raising money and building experience and learning
yeah,
a lot of techniques that I need to learn and all that. But it's a to give you an idea, it's a small boat, but it's a flying boat.
yeah,
So I it's not that I just raised the challenge. No, I brought it to volume 11. I
you
thought I want
you
to build
raised
a
it to
boat
11.
I want to build a boat that is so different, so difficult that it's a challenge technologically and in terms of engineering. It's so above what would be expected as a first boat, as a first one, that I cannot be sure that I can finish. You see
Yeah,
the similarities now; they're building up. It has to be so interesting, so exciting as well. But I have to learn so much just to get it done. And still, I cannot be absolutely sure that it will fly until it flies,
yeah,
right? Or if it doesn't fly, I have to correct it or
yeah,
build it again. So now deciding to do anything requires that level of commitment.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't do it at all, and I prefer to not do anything. Not doing something doesn't mean that that's not productive time.
Yeah.
I would be preparing for the next thing.
I guess
Uh,
my feeling is that I haven't, and I know what you may say to this, and that's true. Anything that you decide to do that you commit to, you have that level of commitment to. I guess what I meant by I haven't had that feeling. I haven't had the feeling to do something on that scale. I guess again,
mhm,
and again, whether it be running or doing anything that could be considered completely illogical. Like
yeah.
my biggest commitment after the run was I decided to go back to graduate school and become a special education teacher. So I spent
Mhm,
I spent 7 years while working doing classes on. I mean, it was a 7 year grind, and I
mhm,
am so glad that I did a run before that. I was prepared for the physical exhaustion, the mental exhaustion, but
uh-huh.
on a grand scale of I guess world altering or life altering things where other people can be like, wow, like people aren't necessarily batting an eye at the fact that I went to grad school, but
But
it was a commitment that I had to make still.
it is, I would say, in terms of challenge of the technicality and the meaning of the challenge, it's not smaller. Dealing with education, especially with special needs kids, or any time that you are dealing with the kids that are on the edges of the bell curve, that is really technical. That's no joke. That work is hard. It's like dealing with substance abuse.
Yes.
Rehab is one of the most difficult jobs in the world. I have no patience for that. So I know I have some notion, because because we did running and because we did some other things. Sometimes I look at other people's work and I think I appreciate it more,
Yes.
because I know that it it didn't it took a lot more than just decision to sit at your desk.
Yeah.
It took a lot more than that.
Yes.
And so in a way, I would say, now I appreciate it a lot more.
And I appreciate a
uh,
lot of other people's sacrifices that they
yeah.
do on a
And
daily basis.
so don't you're, as I say, people may decide to run across the country, they may decide to climb a mountain, they may decide to ride a motorcycle, whatever it is, or build a boat, right?
Yeah.
Or educate kids. That's not easy, man.
Yeah.
That's not easy work. So I respect that.
Yeah.
I
It's been
respect
it's been
that
interesting
a
for
lot.
sure. It's got its own level of challenges. Um,
Yeah.
but again, everything for me, BC or BRAR, before run, after run. Had I tried
Yeah.
this before the run, I can tell you
Mhm.
with near 100% certainty that I could not have done what I've
Yeah.
done since then.
Yeah. Let me give a different example of a different nature. One of my friends, he's a firefighter, and one day I asked him, because we were talking about the nature of jobs, and he was the one. I was a little more dismissive of the idea of jobs, and he corrected that. He did that calibration that I needed,
Hmm.
because he said there are some jobs that you cannot do alone. You cannot be a freelance surgeon. You need to participate, to be a part of a system
Yeah.
that for that to work out. You cannot be a submarine captain freelance. you know you will have to be part of a system. And he said that, and to be a firefighter, I cannot be an independent private firefighter. I need
Yeah.
to, or a consultant firefighter. No, I need to be part of a system. But then he explained to me, there is something that I get on this job that I don't get in anything else. uh, he his point was that if you are building something, you may work on it for a long time, and one day you get the reward if that works out. You may be an investor, and if you make the money, that is a reward that you get, right? There are many things you can be teaching, and you see your student learning and happier and or more prepared, for the future, and you feel a satisfaction from that.
Mhm.
But he said, but in my job, I get a reward every day, because it can be something simple as rescuing a cat from the tree, or it can be something complex like saving a life, from a fire, from an accident, from a situation. No matter what it is, I get the reward every day.
Yeah.
The moment that it happens, boom, I already get all the endorphins, all the the satisfaction, all the
Yeah.
pride. I'm paid in full the same day, and I really enjoy that lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and he said the only other job that has some similarity would be to be a police officer, but the police officers eat too much shit every day. I don't want that side.
Yeah.
But because that job comes with too many liabilities for me.
Yeah.
But he said, but being a firefighter has basically only has upside. Either I'm doing something awesome, or I'm training to do something awesome, or I'm waiting to do something else.
I like
So,
that.
wow, yeah. I thought, "Ah, I can't be that." So yeah, good job, man. Yeah. So life is it's quite interesting after the run.
Yeah.
It was good before, but it's freaking amazing now.
I think what it did for me was it opened my or reopened my eyes and my mind to just how wonderful life truly is.
Mhm.
Because when you float through and you're just not, I had said something um, when I was talking about the run with someone. I said, not only was I not in the game anymore, in the game of life, I said I wasn't even on the team. That's how far I'd fallen. I just was floating through life as a
Mhm.
spectator in my own life, and to find
Mhm.
out just how wonderful each and every moment, each and every interaction I have with people is. And
All
it is
right.
just the simplicity of moments that are so wonderful that I just was blind to, or just had become blind to, that have
Mhm.
opened back up and have stayed open. That's the thing. Once once that once the trigger or the synapses in the brain, once it flipped, there is no off switch anymore. It's open. My mind is open, and I have never lost sight in 10 years. I hope it never happens. Of
Yeah.
each moment and each interaction I have with people, I am I am I said I gain perspective
Mhm.
on the run. I am grateful for every breath and every moment with every individual I come into contact with. And I try my best. I'm sure I fail, but I try my best to impart joy into other people's lives because of how I feel now.
In 2010 or so, I was listening to a radio interview with a lady that she's like kind of a motivational speaker, but she's more into like helping helping people right there in Los Angeles, and I don't remember her name, but she tries to improve certain communities there. So she does some certain things, but she is an incredible speaker and a very interesting story. And she told what she said. I guess she talks about it at every speech engagement, that many years ago she witnessed her son being killed in a gang fight, and she said that nothing can be more painful than watching your own kid die.
Yeah.
And then she explained that, of course, she was devastated and depressed by it for a while, and But later she started to realize that there were things that she still wanted to see happen. There were things that she wanted to do. But then she thought, if you are opposing me, okay, if you are my opponent, or uh, if you are fighting me on that, or if you are my, in one way or another, an opponent, what can you do to me? Like, there is nothing you can do to me that is going to hurt as much as that day.
Yeah.
Not even my own death can possibly hurt
Yeah.
more than that day. So that means I am indestructible now. There is absolutely nothing you can do.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that was very interesting. And during my first run, I was trying to find in my memories what was the most difficult time in my life. It was not difficult to find it. I remember a day in 1994, which was so bad. It was a time in my life, in general, but that point in particular in my life that was so bad. And but I spent a lot of time trying to remember exactly how I felt that day. And then anytime now that I go through a difficult moment, or I have a challenge, or I lose something, or whatever, anything that bothers me, I compare with that day. So I remember exactly the year, the month, the day, and I think, compared to that, this is chicken shit. I, it's like having a it's like having a little pill in a jar that never ends, right? You always
Yeah.
reach inside, and that is a new pill, and that is a pill of happiness that you
Mhm.
pop it, and boom, you're back again. You're positive again, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you have that jar as well.
I think so.
I'm trying to. I'm not trying to read your mind. I'm really asking. Maybe you have a point that you
Yeah.
could choose one specific moment that you had a specific thought, or something specific happened to you in which the pain was so great that now every time you reach a problem, all you have to do is compare those two,
Yeah.
and you are going to realize how awesome it is right now. And that can be, again, it's your jar of happiness pills.
I think the run itself, not that it was a bad thing. It wasn't. The run itself was a great thing. It was a
Mhm.
life changing, cathartic thing. But it was, I tell people all the time, how hard was it? I'm like,
Mhm.
I can't, it's just like I can't explain it to anybody else.
Yeah.
How hard was it? Take the hardest thing you've ever done and multiply it by a billion. It
Mhm.
was the hardest thing I've ever done by a long, it was the toughest moment,
Uh-huh.
5 month moment of my life. And
Yeah.
that is my pill. Nothing compares to how painful it was, how
Uh-huh.
scared I was, how mentally broken down I was, how
Uh-huh.
physically broken down I was, how close to death I might have been a few times.
Uh-huh.
Nothing compares to it. And so any struggles I have, I look back to that, and not only do I say I'm, as you mentioned, freaking Superman,
Yeah.
I'm an astronaut
Uh-huh.
mentally. Nothing can be as hard as that was. Nothing in my life is ever going to be that hard again. I can
Uh-huh.
get through, you know, injuries, death. I can get through any of that stuff.
Yep.
Nothing can be that all encompassing difficult again that I cannot withstand it.
That's the great prize you got.
Yes, through all the physical maladies that I have these days and the constant pain, nothing
Yeah.
come, I'm
You know,
fine.
you go through. It's like when a new problem comes up, it's just an item on the list, and you put that on the list, and you think, okay, I'll solve that. But
Absolutely.
it's not like some other people could have feelings about it. You know, they would feel bad about it, or they would associate that with with other meanings. Now the problems don't have meaning anymore. It's just a thing to solve,
It's just a
you
thing
know,
to
or a
fix.
thing to fix, or a thing to live with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Because you can't, I mean, if you're going to have to live with it, you're just going to have to live with it. I mean,
Yeah.
it just is what it is. Complaining and worrying about it. That's something that in my 20s, every little thing took hold and took a little notch out of my brain.
Uh-huh.
That's out. It doesn't even make its way into my head long enough to stay
Yeah.
anymore. All those
Oh,
little things just they pass through.
yeah. How was that with you? In my case, I lost a lot of my patience. Let me explain. If people start talking about football season, or product reviews, or politics, or you know, the weather too much, or climate change, or whatever it is, I tune out immediately. I actually, politely at first, I I invite people to talk about something else. I said, look, there are so many amazing things about you that I would love to talk about rather than this.
Yeah.
You know, you are much more interesting than this subject. So why don't we get into something else?
Yeah.
Um, and if people insist, you know, in talking negative stuff, they are out of my life. I got rid of so many people since the run. Joe Rogan used once in one of the podcasts an expression that I love. He said, "From time to time, you need to remove the cunts out of your life."
Hmm.
And I think that is true. It's a crass, it's a rude way to say it, but that is a serious core of truth in that. Anybody wasting your time doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
You know, so now I walk away. And if it is like a bar conversation, I just walk away. I had the privilege of a few times already putting some money on the table, grabbing my glass, looking at the person in the eyes, and walk away without saying anything. Just walk away and not talk to them anymore.
Yeah.
And the first time you do it, it feels weird, really weird. Second time is easier. By the third time, it's natural.
Yeah.
People that keep wasting your time, you get rid of that. And I don't have any patience for that. But then I that brings me to another interesting aspect, which is sometimes I'm listening to people talking about stuff, and I think, what would be the way to encourage them to switch now,
Hmm.
to an interesting conversation, you know, and that improved my powers of persuasion. But some people persist, you know, and then yeah, you walk away. But you mentioned, for instance, the some problems that you had, and some of them are so visible when you don't have those problems anymore. For instance,
Yeah.
there are people that in their discussions they have problems, but the problems are always someone else's fault. That's so easy to spot,
Yeah.
so easy. And then you just mention, you know, like you can then that's interesting. Learn how ways to persuade that, you know, that in that circumstance, that maybe it's not just other people, you know,
And
perhaps
I
there is a
think about,
different way of looking at it, and some people will listen.
yeah, I feel bad because I think back to my 20s and I think I
Mhm.
will bet you that I was that person
Uh-huh.
numerous times in conversations,
Yeah.
always somebody else's fault. I was like, I
Now
almost feel
imagine,
terrible about that.
now imagine someone that knew you before, and then they see the way you are doing it now, how
Uh-huh.
happy they must be,
Yeah.
right? And of all these people, I think nobody is happier than your mother. I would
You
bet money
you
that,
would win money.
yeah, that
There
she
is no
must be very
doubt.
happy.
As you mentioned, my
Mhm.
relationship with my mother has always been very chaotic. Um, we're both extremely hard-headed, stubborn people. By the way, stubbornness was one of my best qualities on the run.
Oh yeah.
No quit.
Oh yeah.
But
Stubborn as a mule.
yes, she and I are one and the same that way. And she had her ways of looking at things, and I had my ways, as you mentioned, the teenage years, college years. And again, that interaction, we loved each other. It wasn't like we hated each other, but it was always a very tense relationship. And nothing is better than the wholesale repair of that relationship.
Wow.
Everything else, I raised $25,000 for Wounded Warrior Project. I met veterans on the way, which was the reason I wanted to do that. I repaired relationships with other people. I was able to show gratefulness to everyone else. I was able to inspire people. It pales in comparison to completely mending any cracks in a relationship that I have with my mother. We are closer today than we have ever been in our lives, and that's 10 years after the run. As I said, once the switch is on, it's never gone off. It's so wonderful. It's so wonderful to have that.
Well, Andrew, I don't know. Unless you have something else you want to say, I think there is no better place to close this conversation than this.
I want to say thank you, number one, for turning me on to the podcast last night. The emotional finish to that got me in a way that people who have not gone through this run will not understand. The feeling of completion, tears of joy last night. It got me as well.
Oh yeah.
But I appreciate you staying in touch with me, even when I'm not in touch with others. I hope to stay in touch with more people that have been through what we've been through, because it is a small society of people who have a bond, whether we've met or not. Think we've gone through something as a collective group that you can only talk about and understand with others like us. And I appreciate you letting me do this here today. And this has been so much fun for me. And whatever your next experience is, other than the boat, I'll be right there watching. I can't wait to see what happens. I hope you fly a boat, by the way.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, Milton.
Appreciate you. Love you, brother.
Love you, man.
Be good.
We hope you like this podcast as much as we like to produce it. This has been made possible by the effort of thousands of volunteers, supporters, partners, and visionaries that are helping us build Xenio Travel. Please visit our website